This is a video series I've been talking about and teasing for a while, but it's time to jump right into the top 5 heroes in the Shadow faction as of May 2021. Number 5, Deathsworn. Deathsworn is the jack of no trades, master of one. There is no better budget hero in the game if you need to get out a status effect that combines with a monster, and that monster happens to be the best PvE damage monster in the game, Phoenix. At 4-star, Deathsworn's active will put a permanent burn on 2 heroes, which is enough for broken spaces. At 5-star, Deathsworn will put it on 3 random enemies, which is enough for Flame Shrine. And at 6-star, he'll put it against 4 random enemies, which is enough for other PvE or just general content you want a burn on. Plus, if you don't want to use a magic source, all you have to do is let Deathsworn die, and he will burn them for 15 rounds. Note that this doesn't help for anything that goes past 15 rounds, but all PvE does. He's not the flashiest hero, but when you want to do more damage in PvE, there's no one you'd rather have on your team other than Deathsworn. Number 4, Horus. I actually hate having Horus as my 4th best Shadow hero, but hopefully this shows you just how stacked the Shadow faction actually is. Horus is easily one of the top 5 first E5s, arguable where he falls after that. Maybe I'll release that video eventually, but he's an incredible first E5. He'll get you an easy Shadow Sealand 20 clear. He will mop the floor with Aspen Dungeon Death 1. He is highly underrated in the Void, especially at higher corruptions. I think Baldi's farming at 42 or something with Horses is only E5. Yeah, just a solid an all-around solid hero. His kit is great. He does bleed, so if you want to pair him with Wolf for some PvE Horus boost nonsense, he does some extra HP based damage, which is why he's great in Aspen Tower and Void. He's got some built-in armor break, which helps if you aren't running a Drake or a Siggy. Whenever someone uses an active, he starts stacking up Ravens, which actually do a ton of damage. This is the reason why Solo Horse at V3 is a monster in Solo Sealand, and also Mim Waves. And he also has his last passive, which is going to give him some control immunity. Control cleansing, I suppose, as well as some healing and extra damage. Horus falls off a little bit in the late to end game, and he's not the best PvE hero, which is really why he ends up 4th on this list, but generally speaking, if you're early to mid game, you can't go wrong building an E5 Horus. Number 3, and the newest member to the Shadow faction, Eloise. Eloise is honestly one of the heroes I have the least experience with. As you saw, I don't have a 10-star Eloise yet. I've only played with her a little bit on other people's accounts. That said, Eloise is an absolute monster, so don't feel bad if you built her. Her active does so much damage, does a little bit of attack reduction, which is nice, and it does HP-based damage, which is why Eloise is still viable in all of those game modes I mentioned for Horus. Anything where the enemies scale faster than you, HP-based damage is going to be huge. This is the primary reason that Ithaqua's dots are so powerful, why she's paired with the Elysium meme teams, things like that. She is quite possibly a better first E5 than Horus. I'd love to test her out if any of you have her. Yeah, we've been talking around, and Eloise may be better at Sealand 20, because Horus does require V2, V3 by himself. Check out my video for that. And Aspen Dungeon is a little sketchier with him. There's just some waves he just flat out loses to. But yeah, Eloise might be a little easier. She's better in the Void as long as she has some support. If she's your only E5, she's not going to quite stack up to Horus. She's much better in most damage-based PvE like Flame Shrine and Broken Spaces. And she's obviously a better PvP hero. Not a late or endgame PvP hero, but still much better than Horus is going to be. Yeah, her Scarred Soul and Phantom Shadow passive stacking up is great. And she also works around blocking attacks. So her and Horus really maybe husband and wife, as Baldi was saying. Number 2, and one of my favorite heroes in the game, Ithaqua. Ithaqua is an absolute monster and was honestly my number 1 pick for the best first E5 before some of these heroes, looking at you, Inosuke, were released. Ithaqua is an absolute beast, and she does so much damage. Her active does a ton of damage, does a lot of HP-based damage, and puts out her Ghost Possessed, which is huge. She has some built-in control immunity and speed, so she's no slouch in some PvP. You guys know what her passive does. It's the reason Delacium Army works. A ton of poison and bleed damage. And her last Necro summoning is going to give you even more ghosts and target that lowest HP enemy. Ithaqua has such an easy time clearing Sealand 20. She can easily get you to Aspen Dungeon Death 1. And unlike some of the other heroes I'll mention, she's still useful past Death 1 and even past Death 50. She's not the best. She's not even in the top 5 Aspen heroes, but if you have an Ithaqua and you're at Death 50, she's still very useful at clearing a lot of waves. She's the #1 damage dealer when it comes to Flame Shrine and Broken Spaces. She is surprisingly decent in PvP, especially if you get her imprinted. Her biggest issue is she's incredibly squishy with 537,000 base HP. I wouldn't try and run her unless you're memeing with an assassin team or something like that, but she is viable once you're transitioning. And now in the late to end game, she's an incredible hero for those Void Arc bosses. If you can build a fully sustaining team around her, she will be able to do a ton of damage, even all the way to Void 6. So if you have a E5 Ithaqua, consider keeping her around and maybe even pushing her to V4 once you're done with your PvP team and really any other goals you might have. Plus, Ithaqua has a super dope basic skin and her soccer skin is so cool. Not that that factors into the rankings, but you got to give it some credit. It is a pretty sweet skin, and I love kicking soccer balls at Aspen and Ada and Broken Spaces. Last but not least, you guys could have guessed it. It is possibly everyone's favorite hero, Tix. The game changed completely when Tix was released. Probably for the better. Maybe it made some things too easy, but Tix is an absolute monster. His kit is incredibly well-rounded. I mean, his worst ability is his worst ability is his death passive, which inflicts Revenging Wraith, which does 30% of a target's max HP, and then explodes onto other enemies. That's arguably his worst part of his kit. That's how good this hero is. He's got 583,000 base HP and 25,000 attack because he's a mage instead of an assassin. His active is the reason Tix can crush the Aspen Dungeon, can crush late game content, is solid in PvP, used to be better, and is an absolute monster in stuff like Aspen Dungeon and Tower of Oblivion. He does 800% to 4 random enemies, as well as 800% of their attack to them. So this is going to scale higher than Russell's active, because Russ's is only based on his own. He does an extra attack steal, which is going to make this do more damage later on. Plus, it is a surprisingly high rate of crowd control. So if you are running Tix in PvP, Splendid Rui Tix is going to do a lot more silence and horrifies than you are going to expect. In addition to that, he's got built-in control, immunity, and speed, so he's not banned in PvP. And his passive skill just keeps building up that attack. It helps you keep your heroes alive if you're using Tix in more of a support role. And yeah, I mean, if you've seen any Aspen Dungeon videos, you've seen Tix. He can 2-tap some solo waves with his basic, which gives him enough energy for his active, the next wave, and then you are putting off a 3,200% active against enemies with attack much higher than yours. This is the reason you're able to one-shot waves into the 500s using Tix. This is the reason that you can one-shot any Tower of Oblivion wave with Tix, even if you're running energy. Honestly, you guys all know what Tix does at this point. I can't, sell him enough, but yeah, this is the reason Tix is #1, at least in my book, for Shadow Faction heroes in 2021. So, just a quick recap, my top 5 Shadow Faction heroes in order. #1, our boy with the clap hands, Tix. #2, my favorite first E5, Ithaqua. #3, the newest member of the Shadow Faction, Eloise. #4, the tried and true first E5, Horus. And last but not least, coming in 5th place is Deathsworn. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this series. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of my rankings. For more of my beginner guides and tutorials, you could check out this playlist in the top left corner. If you want to watch my Orange Artifact free-to-play tier list, check out this video up here in the top right corner. Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons if I've provided you with any value and help me grow this channel.